Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of Deep and Effective Big Book Study. I am a recovered alcoholic. So glad for you to join me today. In this episode, I believe this is going to be episode number 4. The topic today is going to be what's known as the third option. If you're not familiar with this third option, stick around because pretty cool stuff we're going to talk about. So before we get going, I always want to invite God into this and invite Him to speak through me so I can be a channel of His voice. And we're going to use the set-aside prayer. And if you're not familiar with the set-aside prayer, you can go online. There's many variations of it. And just find something that suits you and your current needs. So, if you want to join me in a moment of silence, guys, we will invite God into this and open with the set-aside prayer. God, please help me set aside everything I think I know about myself, my disease, the 12 steps, and especially you, so I may have an open mind and a new experience with all these things. Please help me see the truth. So now that we've invited God into this, let's look at some details I have on my notes here. So if you're curious and you're new to the channel and wondering where we get the name Deep and Effective from, well, I'm going to go to page 25 and I'm going to read verbatim exactly where I came up with the name to call the channel. So in the middle of the page there on 25, little paragraph in the middle, it says, "The great fact is just this and nothing less, that we have had deep and effective spiritual experiences, which has revolutionized our whole attitude toward life, toward our fellows, and toward God's universe. The central fact of our lives today is the absolute certainty that our Creator has entered into our hearts and lives in a way which is indeed miraculous. He has commenced to accomplish those things for us which we could never do by ourselves." And it just so happens that that paragraph is going to come up again today when we start getting into this third option. So as always, guys, I will be dropping in my email. It's recoveredalcoholic1939@gmail.com. If you're looking for big book sponsorship, reach out to me. Guys and gals, ladies, if you're needed a sponsor, reach out to me. I can get you hooked up with some other women who are really strong in the program. Also, I'm going to be dropping in a couple of Zoom codes and passwords for some online meetings that I attend. So guys, on Thursdays, there's a men-only step study. It meets at 6 p.m. Central. And here's the code and Zoom code and password. And then on Sundays, we have a men and women's big book study. It's 6 p.m. Central as well. And here's the code and password for that. So if you're out there looking for some real recovery-based meetings, by all means, come check us out. We'd love to have you. So let's get right down to business, shall we, guys? And understand what we're going to talk about today. And as always, we are going to allow the big book to be our voice. The big book and our experience. Anything outside the scope of that does not belong in Alcoholics Anonymous. I don't care what you hear in meetings. And that's really, what this talk is about today. Is we're going to try to eliminate some of the nonsense and clutter that gets brought into the meetings. And one of the biggest misconceptions that we have is the belief that sobriety is a treatment for alcoholism, right? And this couldn't be further from the truth, right? So my time does not equal recovery. My sobriety doesn't equal recovery, not even remotely close. See, because I just don't stop having alcoholism when I stop drinking. And this is what we want to talk about today. This is the third option. You see, because if you actually have the disease of alcoholism like I do, right, there's a difference between chemical dependency, substance abuse sufferers, addictive personalities, any type of disorder, hard drinker, any other title that we have that comes in and out of the rooms today. They're not the same as the disease of alcoholism. So, and what we have to understand is that when you have the disease of alcoholism, what it is that we can't live in a world of drinking and we can't live in a world of not drinking. I need something completely different. I need a third option because those two options will not work for me. And this is what the program offers us. It offers us the third option. And there's just example after example after example in our book, and I have a few written down here that we're going to go through. That way we can get the idea of what we're going for here. Not going to make this, these episodes an hour long, going over every line in the big book. But we've got enough information here today to really capture what this third option is. And again, I want you to understand that sobriety is not the solution to alcoholism. My dry time does not treat my disease. I don't stop having my disease just because I'm sober. Okay, it's a big myth and misconception. Go to page XXVII, which is the doctor's opinion. And in the middle of the page, the paragraph that starts with frothy emotional pills. Some of you probably very familiar with this page. Let's look at something that he tells us. Very important. He tells me that frothy emotional pills seldom suffices. The message, which can interest and hold these alcoholic people, must have depth and weight. Very important. In nearly all cases, their ideals must be grounded in the power greater than themselves if they are to recreate their lives. Let's look at that for a second. So here's the thing. Like, if you come into Alcoholics Anonymous and you can just not drink and you can still recreate your life, then you're probably not a real alcoholic. At least you're not an alcoholic of this type. And I'm pointing at the book right now. You're not an alcoholic of my type, right? So if you can just not drink and then move on with your life, then you don't suffer from the disease of alcoholism. See, because what happens when we just don't drink, my life doesn't get better. My life actually gets worse, because that's the only thing that I have to treat my disease. If you remove that, you're not removing the problem. See, and here's the thing, if you're a problem drinker, a hard drinker, chemically dependent, all these other things, you remove the drink from your life. You've actually removed the problem. But that's not so with the real alcoholic, right? Actually, my disease is going to become even more aggravated because I have nothing to treat it with, right? And what is frothy emotional appeal, right? I'll give you some examples. Don't drink and go to meetings. 90 meetings in 90 days. Don't drink no matter what. Just keep coming back. All these ridiculous, corny slogans and catchy one-liners that we hear repeated in the room. They're gimmicks is what they are, is what we refer to them as. They're actually gimmicks. And they carry no depth and no weight for the real alcoholic. So the only thing that's going to save me is what it says right here, is a power greater than myself. That's the third option. God is the third option. Right? And the program gives me a way to get hooked up to this power that will solve my problem. You with me? So that's one example. Let's go to page 8. We're going to go through Bill's story here. And I absolutely love reading about Bill. And on page 8 is where Bill Wilson has his first step experience. And guys, if you're not familiar with what a first step experience is, by all means, please shoot me an email. Have any questions, comments, concern about that, I would love to talk to you. It's something that we need to be teaching in the rooms, is what it really means and what we have to understand what's behind a first step experience. His first step experience actually also looks just like my first step experience. And what it is, it's about admitting complete defeat. What we're doing is, in order to have that first step experience, is I must meet the requirement of the principle which is behind the first step. It's honesty with humility. I must honestly concede to my innermost self, like it talks about on page 30, that I'm beaten, I'm done, I'm out of fight. But we want to look for this third option that we're talking about. Remember, I can't live in a world of drinking and I can't live in a world of not drinking. And on the same page, when the sentence starts with, in reality, that was the beginning of my last debauch. I was soon to be catapulted to what I like to call the fourth dimension of existence. And this is what the third option is. I was to know happiness, peace, and usefulness in a way of life which is incredibly wonderful as time passes. And if you're here and you're new and you don't know what the fourth dimension of existence is, just like me, when I came into the rooms, I had no clue what they were talking about. Well, as always, I always like to have my little handy-dandy big book dictionary on hand, because I need help understanding words sometimes. And they tell us what the fourth dimension of existence is here in this dictionary. It says something outside the range of ordinary experience. So when he tells me that when I get to this fourth dimension of existence, this is what's going to happen to me, right? I'm going to know happiness, peace, and usefulness, right? See, I can't get happiness, peace, and usefulness just by not drinking. And also, it's not going to get incredibly more wonderful as time passes. It's actually going to get incredibly worse as time passes. Because just not drinking is not treating my disease. I can't live in a world of sobriety, and I can't live in a world of drinking. I need something completely different. And when we understand that the fourth dimension definition is about something outside the range of ordinary experience. See, being full of happiness and peace and usefulness is something completely out of the ordinary to me. Right? What I know is pain, bewilderment, confusion, and chaos. That's what I know. That's what's ordinary to me. So when I understand that the third option is what I need, right? Because on my own, I'll never be able to achieve happiness, peace, and usefulness in a way that gets better over time. I'll never get that by just not drinking and going to meetings. It's impossible for the real alcoholic. Let's move on. Let's move on to page 19. And guys, if it sounds like I'm repeating myself, it's because I am. Repetition is a vital part of the program. I mean, when we get to the 12th step on page 60 and you study the words, we have the word practice and we have the word try. This is all about repetition. And the big book repeats itself over and over. It has the same reoccurring theme and it never strays from that. So top of 19, when the sentence says, we feel that the elimination of our drinking is but a beginning. Well, what? Just not drinking is the answer? No. Sobriety is the answer? Nope. Listen to what they're telling me. The elimination of my drinking is only but a beginning. So that just blows, just don't drink and go to meetings out of the water, doesn't it, guys? I have to do some things. And here they are right here. A much more important demonstrations of our principles lies before us in our respected homes, occupations, and affairs, right? So I have to do some things. I can't just not drink and expect to recreate my life. And that's what the steps are going to do. They're going to teach me how to recreate my life. Let's go to page 25. And this is where we started. And I read about the deep and effective spiritual experience, right? This is what the third option is about. Okay, and there's another paragraph on the bottom that I'm going to read that is also the third option, the last paragraph on the page. It says, if you are seriously alcoholic as we were, we believe there's no middle of the road solution. So this idea that this trying to drink, trying to not drink, that's that middle of the road. I'm trying to balance where I can manage life still if I'm just drinking or not drinking, and I can't do that. I need something completely different. And here it is. We were in a position where life was becoming impossible. So, and until I believe that my life has become impossible, this is all about having a first step experience. Until I believe my life is impossible, then steps 2 through 12 are absolutely useless. Because if I don't believe that I'm powerless, why on earth would I need to seek power? If I don't believe I'm hopeless, then why on earth would I need to seek hope? Everything comes back to having this first step experience, to come to the belief that I cannot live in a world of drinking and I cannot live in a world of not drinking. I am beaten. And I'll finish the third option right here. And we'd pass into the region from which there was no return from human aid. No human aid. We had but two alternatives, and here it is. And then the two alternatives are very simple. One was to go on to the bitter end, blotting out the consciousness of our intolerable situation as best we could. See, that's that drinking and not drinking. That's my intolerable situation, and I'm just going to go on to the bitter end with it, fighting the drink. Or I can do this. I can accept spiritual help. And not only am I going to accept spiritual help, when I turn the page and read the rest of the sentence, it puts it in the real deep context. Because it says, this we did because we honestly wanted to. See, I have to have the want to even do this, right? The need is not enough. I've needed Alcoholics Anonymous since I was 13 years old, but I didn't want it till I was 41, you follow? So when I brought the need and the want together for the very first time in my life, well, this is when everything changed for me. We have to want this thing. Let's move on. Let's go on to 27. Here's another example, beautiful example of the third option, in the middle of the page. And he's talking about spiritual experiences, right? It says, they appear to be in the nature of a huge emotional displacements and rearrangements. Ideas, emotions, and attitudes, which were once the guiding force of our lives, of these men are suddenly cast to one side, and a completely new set of conceptions and motives begin to dominate them. See, I can't achieve that by just not drinking, right? Sobriety will never give me a completely new set of conceptions and motives. It's just not going to happen for me. Now, if you can do that, congratulations, my hat's off to you. But you're not an alcoholic of this type. And again, I'm pointing at the book. That was 27. 28, I love this. So, I keep repeating myself for a reason. And, I understand it's sobriety is what gets us in the door, right? That's what got me into the rooms, right? Because I don't know at the time. I just think that alcohol is my problem. I don't understand that there's something so much greater going on, which is the disease of alcoholism. And that's fine. That's what's going to get us. That's what gets you in the rooms. Awesome. But if I'm surrounding myself with people that actually understand the program and are able to give me an accurate and adequate representation of it, they're going to soon tell me, well, we're glad you're here, and we understand that you think this is about sobriety. But the reality of it is, it's something so much greater than that. And it's right here. It says, we in turn sought the same escape with all the desperation of a drowning man, right? Again, if I don't feel that I'm a drowning man, then I'm not going to be willing to work these steps. What seemed at first a flimsy reed has proved to be the loving and powerful hand of God. You see, sobriety is the flimsy reed. The meeting is the flimsy reed. You understand? What Alcoholics Anonymous is really offering is the powerful and loving hand of God, because that's the solution to alcoholism. The flimsy reed is sobriety. The flimsy reed is the coin in my pocket. My flimsy reed is birthday night at your local clubhouse. That's what a flimsy reed is. And it's time that we start teaching our classroom, the meeting, the truth. It's right here in this book. Let's see, we got a few more, guys. I got some comments from some of the viewers about they think anywhere from 25 to 30 minutes is a good time to have a video. But I also want to make sure I cover enough information to keep us all nice and informed here. So we'll pick back up on page 50 here. In the bottom paragraph, it says, here are thousands of men and women, worldly indeed. Well, who are these thousands of men and women? Who are we talking about? These are recovered alcoholics. Because what I'm about to read is how a recovered alcoholic speaks. At least how this recovered alcoholic speaks. They flatly declare. What's outside the scope of that? There's no wiggle room with that. They flatly declare. This is fact. This is truth. This is our experience. Listen to what they say. That since they have come to believe in a power greater than themselves, to take a certain attitude toward that power, and the attitude that we're going to take, guys, is willingness, and to do certain simple things. There's been a revolutionary change in their way of living and thinking. I can't achieve a revolutionary change in my way of living and thinking just by not drinking. In the face of collapse and despair, in the face of total failure of their human resources, again, that's step one, they found that a new power, peace, and happiness and sense of direction flowed into them. Wow. You see, I cannot get power, peace, happiness, and sense of directions by just not drinking. And just not drinking and going to meetings. It just ain't going to happen, guys. Top of 51. Another great example. It says, leaving aside the drink question, they tell why living was so unsatisfactory. See, they're telling me just because I'm not drinking doesn't mean that my life's going to be satisfactory, because it's not. And again, I've said this before, I'll say it again. If you're the real alcoholic and you take alcohol from your life, you're going to get worse because you don't have anything to treat the disease. The restlessness, the irritability, and the discontentedness will only grow and fester. And we will arrive at that jumping off place again, which we're going to read on the last one, where I can't imagine life with alcohol and I can't imagine life without. I need something completely different. A couple more, guys. Let's read the bedevilments on page 52. If you're not familiar with these, I've heard this referred to as untreated alcoholism, and I don't necessarily agree with it, because what the bedevilments on 52 are not limited to the alcoholic. They're actually the human condition. It's the human experience. And if you don't know what bedevilments are, again, the old handy dandy big book dictionary comes to the rescue, and it just simply means torments. I'm going to read them. Tell me if you can relate to any of this. We were having trouble with personal relationships. We couldn't control our emotional natures. We were prey to misery and depression. We couldn't make a living. We had a feeling of uselessness. We were full of fear. We were unhappy. We couldn't seem to be of real help to other people. Was not a basic solution of these bedevilments. So all these examples I just read, right? What it is the spiritual malady is what I'm reading. And just because I'm not drinking, these things don't go away in my life. Actually, I can have years of sobriety and still experience some of these things on this page, right? Because again, just not drinking doesn't fix me, doesn't treat the malady that I have, doesn't treat the disease. So let's pick back up on 82, and we've got several examples on 82, 83, and 84. And middle of the page, the sentence says, sometimes we hear an alcoholic say that the only thing he needs to do is keep sober. Again, nonsense. They're telling me right here in the book that sobriety is not enough. Another example on 82, towards the bottom of the page. Sentence, we feel a man is unthinking when he says sobriety is enough. Guys, I can't make it any clearer than the big book here. I mean, they just put it in black and white, that sobriety is not the answer. You know, when you get to the 83 and 84, and we have the 9-step promises, these beautiful 9-step promises, the essence of all of them is that I can't achieve a single one of those on my own. I can't achieve a single one of those just by not drinking. It's impossible for me. Page 84, when we get into the 10th step, guys, I keep talking about this idea that we need a third option. It's God is the option, right? And I'm going to read it from step 10, when it says that we have entered the world of the Spirit. This is what the third option is. It's the world of the Spirit. And if I've carefully followed these clear-cut directions, by the time I reach page 84, I will have become a recovered alcoholic, because that's what the 10-step promises are all about. They're describing what we get when we do the work. We will become a recovered alcoholic. And if you don't know what a recovered alcoholic is, I'm going to read it, because there's so much debate and so much just nonsense that surrounds this idea that recovering and recovered, right? I've said this before and I'll say it again, is the big book is crystal clear on what we will recover from this disease. So on the bottom of 84, going into 85, we're going to read the best definition of the third option. And we have ceased fighting anything or anyone, even alcohol. For by this time, sanity will have returned. I cannot achieve sanity by just not drinking. We seldom be interested in liquor. If tempted, we recoil from it from a hot flame. We react sanely and normally. I don't react sanely and normally just because I'm not drinking. And we will find that this has happened automatically. So if I can't do it to myself, then where is this coming from? Because this is a promise. And again, it's a promise not because I've read it. It's a promise because I've experienced it. We will see that our new attitude toward liquor has been given us without any thought or effort on our part. Given us. Well, if it's a gift, where do you think it came from? That's right, God. It just comes. That is the miracle. See, it's a miracle. We are not fighting it. Neither are we avoiding temptation. We feel as though we've been placed in a position of neutrality. Guys, if you look up the word neutrality in our dictionary, one of the examples, it says non-participation in war. You see, that war that rages inside of me is the drinking, not drinking, not drinking, drinking, back and forth, over and over and over and over. That goes away, and I become free of the obsession that just rips me apart. We're placed in a position of neutrality, safe and protective. We've not even sworn off, right? I don't have to make any more promises, guys. I just have to show up and do this work. And everything else will happen automatically. Listen to this. Instead, the problem has been removed. I can't remove alcoholism on my own. I've tried. I tried for years. It does not exist for us. Wow, I don't know how much more powerful we can get than that. Let's go over a couple more examples. And we're going to jump to the back of the, a little later here on page 100. There's a beautiful promise on page 100. And it's been kind of affectionately named as the sponsorship prayer, or I've heard it called that. So on page 100, it says, both you and the new man must walk day by day in the path of spiritual progress. If you persist, remarkable things will happen. When we look back, we realize that the things which came to us when we put ourselves in God's hands were better than anything we could have planned. I can't achieve any of this from sobriety. Follow the dictates of a higher power, and you will presently live in a new and wonderful world, no matter what your present circumstances. That's the third option, guys. That's the world of the spirit. That's the fourth dimension of existence. Let's hit one more on page 152. And I touched on it earlier. Let's get verbatim, shall we? Page 152, we're talking about a vision for you. He will presently try the old game again, for he isn't happy about his sobriety. Exactly. I'm not happy when I'm just not drinking, because I'm not treating the disease. He cannot picture life with alcohol. Someday he will be unable to imagine life either with alcohol or without it. Then he will know loneliness such as few do. He will be at the jumping off place. He will wish for the end. You see, this is what happens in a world of just not drinking. This is what happens to the real alcoholic from just not drinking and going to meetings. So my friends, I think I've given y'all enough examples from the big book about this third option and about how we're not here. We're not selling sobriety. Alcoholics Anonymous is not selling sobriety. We're selling recovery. Recovery equals God. And just not drinking will never get me recovered. All right, I have to take these steps as they're laid out in this book so I can get hooked up to this power. You know, there's many other examples that I actually probably have about 30 of them on paper right now. And it's ever growing, ever expanding experience. So there's never a limit to where you can take the book. So I appreciate you sticking with me, guys. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. That would be fantastic. It really will help the channel grow. Share it with some friends. Hit that like button and leave a comment if you got any questions. So until next time, may God bless and keep you